with all the usual trappings. Expensive decorations, carefully curated guest lists, and the annual tradition of comparing children's achievements. I stood by the window watching snow fall on the manicured grounds of my parents' estate, trying to become invisible. "Did you hear about Jennifer's daughter?" Aunt Catherine's voice carried across the room. "Made partner at Deloitte. Only 32. And Michael's son just closed that merger in Singapore," Uncle Robert added. "8 figures, I heard." Then inevitably the spotlight turned to me. "Catherine," Aunt Catherine's voice dripped with false sympathy, "another holiday alone? Still doing that? What was it? Private equity thing?" I took a sip of wine, remembering the 16-hour days, the complex deal structures, the quiet satisfaction of building something entirely my own. "Something like that. You know," my mother chimed in, ever helpful, "Linda's daughter is hiring at Goldman. I could make a call." "Mom, I left Goldman 5 years ago," I reminded her. "Voluntarily." "Yes, dear," she sighed. "We remember." Of course they remembered. It was family legend now, how Catherine Wilson had thrown away her promising career at Goldman Sachs to start her own investment firm. Solo. No family connections. No safety net. "Another holiday alone," Cousin Amanda Stage whispered to her husband. "No partner, no real job. Such a shame." I checked my phone where notifications from 3 different time zones competed for attention. My latest deal was closing tonight. Not that anyone here would care about a $2 billion private equity acquisition. "At least tell me you're dating someone," Aunt Catherine pressed. "That nice Anderson boy is single again." "Actually," I started but was cut off by the arrival of my father and his entourage of business associates. The real reason for this elaborate Christmas gathering. Networking disguised as holiday cheer. "John." Dad called out jovially to a distinguished-looking man in an expensive suit. "So glad you could make it. How's the company?" John Marshall, CEO of Marshall Technologies, my father's biggest client. The company had been struggling lately, though Dad either didn't know or wouldn't admit it. "Actually, Robert," Marshall began, then stopped as his eyes landed on me. His face transformed from polite social smile to genuine surprise. "Ms. Wilson. I didn't expect. That is, your father never mentioned." Dad looked confused. "You know Catherine." "Know her?" Marshall laughed. "Her investment saved my company." The room went silent. Aunt Catherine's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. "I don't understand," Dad said slowly. "What investment?" Marshall was already walking toward me, hand extended. "The Series B funding round. The restructuring plan. Your daughter's firm. Surely you know about Wilson Capital Partners." My mother dropped her canopy. Sometimes the sweetest success is the one that comes with complete silence. The elegant holiday party atmosphere cracked like thin ice. Relatives who had been so busy pitying my failed career were suddenly very interested in the conversation between Marshall and me. $2 billion in private equity, Marshall was saying enthusiastically. "Most innovative funding structure I've seen in 20 years. The board couldn't believe the terms she negotiated. $2 billion. Dad's voice was faint. He'd built his accounting firm handling million-dollar accounts, but billion with a B was different territory entirely. "The Asia expansion alone," Marshall continued, pulling out his phone to show charts, "doubled our market cap in 6 months. Catherine's team structured it perfectly." "Team?" Aunt Catherine interrupted. "But she works alone, from her apartment." I smiled, thinking of my apartment, the entire top floor of a downtown high-rise, where 30 of the sharpest investment minds in the country developed strategies that were revolutionizing private equity. "Actually," I said, checking my phone again as another notification came in, "we just opened our Singapore office. The apartment is now the East Coast headquarters." Cousin Amanda choked on her champagne. "But..." Mom looked bewildered. "You never mentioned." "You never asked," I replied simply. "Too busy suggesting entry-level positions at other firms." Marshall was still talking, now surrounded by suddenly attentive relatives. "The employee stock ownership program was genius. Productivity up 40% since implementation. And the tech integration strategy. The Christmas bonus email just went out," my assistant texted. I opened the attachment. The numbers made me smile. Even by Wall Street standards they were impressive. Speaking of bonuses, Marshall turned back to me. That analyst you recommended? Brilliant hire. Though I suppose you wouldn't let mediocre talent handle $2 billion in investments. Dad sat down heavily in a nearby chair. In his world, analysts were junior number crunchers. In mine they structured billion-dollar deals. Catherine, he said quietly, why didn't you tell us? About Marshall Technologies? Client confidentiality. About any of it. Therm. The success. I looked around the room at the relatives who'd dismissed my career choices, the aunts who'd tried to fix me up with junior associates, the cousins who'd smirked about my private equity thing. Would it have mattered? I asked. 3 years ago you said I was making a mistake. That a woman couldn't succeed alone in private equity. The room got very quiet. About that, Marshall interjected, the Financial Times article comes out tomorrow. Rising star in private equity, how Catherine Wilson is rewriting investment rules. Mom dropped another canopy. Sometimes success doesn't need announcements. Sometimes it just needs the right moment to walk through the door. The rest of the Christmas party transformed into something entirely different from its usual routine. The carefully orchestrated social hierarchy collapsed as word spread about who I really was and what I had built. Every corner held whispered conversations about Wilson Capital Partners, market valuations, and the mysterious daughter who'd apparently become a financial powerhouse without anyone noticing. The Singapore office, Marshall was telling an enraptured group, is just the beginning. Catherine's firm is revolutionizing how we think about private equity in emerging markets. I stepped away to take a call from Tokyo, speaking quietly in Japanese, another skill my family hadn't known about. When I returned, Dad was waiting with 2 glasses of his prized scotch. That was Tanaka-san, I said, accepting the drink. The Osaka deal just closed. $3 billion. He nearly dropped his glass. $3 billion? In one deal. Small by our standards, I noted. Last month's London acquisition was 5. We stood in silence for a moment, watching the party reshape itself around the new reality. Aunt Catherine was frantically Googling my firm on her phone. Cousin Amanda was trying to corner Marshall for information about job opportunities. I looked up your firm, Dad finally said. After Marshall, well. Forbes lists Wilson Capital Partners as one of the fastest-growing private equity firms in history. $20 billion under management. Major offices in 4 countries. 5 as of tomorrow, I corrected. The Dubai announcement goes out at market open. Dubai. Mom had appeared beside us, still looking shell-shocked. But you told us you were working on small investments. That was 3 years ago, I smiled. Things change. Why didn't you use the family connections? Dad asked. I could have introduced you to clients, helped with networking. Because I needed to build it my way, I explained. No shortcuts. No family name opening doors. Every deal, every client, every success had to be earned. Marshall rejoined us, now talking excitedly on his phone. Yes, Wilson Capital is handling the expansion. No, not that Wilson. Yes, Catherine Wilson. The Catherine Wilson. My mother flinched slightly at the emphasis. The idea that her daughter had become the Catherine Wilson, without her knowledge, seemed to physically pain her. The board meeting next week. Marshall turned to me. You'll be there? Via hologram, I nodded. I'll be in Dubai for the office opening, but we've developed some impressive technology for remote participation. Another company we acquired last year. Hologram. Uncle Robert sputtered. Like Star Wars. More advanced, actually. We're rolling it out to all our portfolio companies next quarter. Saves on travel time, reduces carbon footprint. Dad was still processing. $20 billion under management. That means your firm's value was $12 billion at last valuation, I finished. Though after the Dubai announcement and the new tech patents, probably closer to 15. The room went so quiet you could hear the snow falling outside. But you're still alone, Aunt Catherine blurted out, clinging to her last piece of perceived superiority. No partner, no family. Actually, I smiled as my phone buzzed with another message. I'm engaged. She's the head of AI research at MIT. We met when my firm was developing the hologram technology. Mom sat down abruptly. Dad's scotch glass froze halfway to his mouth. She. Aunt Catherine squeaked. Dr. Sarah Chin, I continued. Brilliant scientist, incredible partner. She's in Singapore right now, overseeing the integration of our new quantum computing division. Marshall beamed. Dr. Chen's work on AI-driven market analysis is revolutionary. The algorithms she developed for Wilson Capital have transformed how we process market data. She'll be here tomorrow, I added. Her jet lands at noon. Her jet. Mom whispered. Our jet, I corrected. A small perk of running a successful firm. Though we usually take commercial flights, better for the environment. The party continued to evolve around us. Relatives who had been dismissing my career choices were now desperately trying to demonstrate their business acumen. Cousins who had mocked my private equity thing were asking about internship opportunities. Dad was quiet, studying me with new eyes. All this time, he said finally, when we thought you were struggling, you were building an empire. Not an empire, I corrected. A revolution. We're changing how private equity works. Sustainable investment, employee ownership, technological integration, making money while making things better. The foundation alone, Marshall added, has funded more clean energy research than most governments. Foundation. Mom perked up. What foundation? The Wilson Innovation Foundation, I explained. We take 10% of our profits and invest in breakthrough technologies. Clean energy, medical research, quantum computing. Last month's grant to MIT was $100 million, Marshall said proudly, as if he'd had something to do with it. The Cancer Research Project. That's what the Tokyo call was about, I nodded. The trials are showing promising results. Dad set down his scotch. Catherine. We've been so wrong. About many things, I agreed. But mostly about what success looks like. It's not about corner offices or country club memberships. It's about impact. Change. Making a difference while making a profit. My phone buzzed again. Sarah was calling from Singapore. On the screen, notifications showed markets opening in Asia, deals closing in Europe, and the first headlines about the Dubai office appearing in the financial press. Excuse me, I said, standing. I need to take this. When, Dad? The Marshall Technologies board meeting next week? I'll be chairing it. As majority shareholder. As I walked away, I heard Marshall explaining to my stunned father how my firm had quietly acquired controlling interest in his biggest client's company. Aunt Catherine was frantically trying to explain to her husband what quantum computing meant. Mom was already on her phone, probably updating her social media to mention her daughter's $15 billion company. But none of that mattered as much as the moment Dad turned to watch me leave, finally seeing not his struggling daughter, but a woman who had built something extraordinary, not despite his lack of support but because of it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's proving yourself right. And sometimes being alone at Christmas means having the freedom to build something bigger than anyone could have imagined. When I answered Sarah's call, the hologram projecting her image in crystal clarity before me, I could hear the future in her voice, our future, built on innovation, courage, and the audacity to ignore everyone who said it couldn't be done. Ready to change the world? She asked. I looked back at my family, still reeling